I'm good.
Oh, you slipped that in. Nice. I like it.
The Rose?
Oh, yeah.
I am Mrs. Rose. Since
Indeed.
we're going with all those matriarch, all those terms, joking with me. All right, let's get it going, guys. Thursday night football. We have a good matchup when two 3-1 teams face off as the Rams travel to Seattle. We know those 12s are going to be live. LA fresh off a 55-40 debacle. And against Tampa, their star running back Todd Gurley hasn't been himself, while the Seahawks have had some too close for comfort games against teams without their starting quarterback. Seattle is favored by 1.5. Stephen A. Smith. We got a real game. I know how much you love Thursday night football. Who wins tonight?
I got the Seahawks winning the game tonight. I think it's a short week. I think the game is in Seattle, and I think that Russell Wilson has looked absolutely sensational. And I think the national audience, myself mainly, owes this man an apology. We've been talking about MVP candidates in terms of Patrick Mahomes. We talked about Lamar Jackson before he fell off against Cleveland last week. We talked about Dak Prescott. Obviously, we have not talked about Russell Wilson, who has completed about 97 of 133 or 94, something like that, for 133 attempts. 72.9% completion percentage. Over 1,100 yards passing. 8 touchdowns, not a single interception. And unlike the previous 2 weeks, Seattle got back to their running game last week. Chris Carson ran the ball about 22 times, 104 yards. This is what they do. They run the football effectively. They move the chains. They wear you down. They make sure they don't have their defense out on the field for an exorbitant amount of time. We know that when they are out there, they can do some things if they're rested and ready to go. I'm just of the mindset that when you look at this being a short week, being in Seattle, combined with how Los Angeles has looked defensively, you gave up 55 points to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. 55 points on your home turf to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And I know Mike Evans is special. Jameis Winston has looked good with Byron Leftwich and Bruce Arians. I get that. But 55 points, there is a problem with that defense. They've got to get it fixed. And not only that, there's an incredible imbalance. You ran the football about 11 times. Jared Goff threw the football about, 68 times, for crying out loud? You can't have that. You can't have that. So they're going to try to get back and find themselves, but this ain't the week to find yourself. A short week on the road in Seattle. Everything points to Seattle winning a close game in this situation.
Yep, that was my first thought, too. But I think actually the Rams are going to pull it off. Look, if Gurley's not right, that's why Jared Goff throws the ball so much, right? Like, if Gurley's not right, say the year Cam won the MVP, you know who the best player in the second half of that season was? Russell Wilson. You can see so many years where that was the case, where this guy won the MVP, but over this half a season, Russell Wilson was an MVP candidate in this season. He's a Hall of Fame quarterback in his prime. And yes, they're at home, and yes, it's a short week. But you know what I noticed this season so far, Stephen A? The desperate team seems to be winning these games. That includes Thursday night football, and you called one when you took the Eagles over the Packers on the road, short week, looking bad the week before. I think if you really look at Seattle, and they were one of my sleeper teams this year, but if you really look at Seattle, while Russell Wilson has looked good, the team really hasn't. Think of what they won by the skin of their teeth against Cincinnati week 1. Cincinnati's awful. You just said the other day, if it wasn't for the Dolphins, right? Cincinnati or maybe Washington, they're awful. And yet, Russell Wilson, by the skin of his teeth, who have they really beaten up on? They're barely beating teams, barely, and that's with Russell Wilson playing this well. Now you have a Rams team who's coming off a season where they went to a Super Bowl, who's been, Gurley can't be used any less or play any worse than he has already. He's likely to play better than that. Goff has been pedestrian at best. This is a desperate team. Road teams this year, Thursday Night Football, for whatever reason, have played over their heads. I like the Rams in an upset.
Well, I will say this to you. Number one, they didn't barely beat Arizona. That was 27-10. That's number one. Even though
they didn't look good, though.
They didn't look that great, but, Arizona.
You could look at Jared Goff. You could look at Aaron Donald, obviously, and you could look at Todd Gurley. I think what they're doing with Gurley now is a kind of version of load management like we saw in the NBA with Kawhi Leonard this last season.
Which he's not happy about, by the way.
Hoping that they will get to the playoffs. And, by the way, look what happened to the offense in the Super Bowl last year when Gurley was clearly compromised. Not the same. And so what we've seen so far from the Rams is a very cautious approach with Gurley. I think the handcuffs come off a little bit for a game like this. I think the Rams score the upset.
Remember that the 49ers, we'll learn a lot more about them this Sunday when they go up against Cleveland.
No question.
That's number one. And number two, their very next game after Cleveland is the Los Angeles Rams. So remember, the Rams got two bites at the apple. They got Seattle this Thursday, and then their very next game is against the 49ers. We'll see.
Who would you say that the Seahawks looked great against?
I wouldn't say they looked great against anybody.
Russell Wilson, 8 TDs, no picks.
No,
only
Russell
him
Wilson.
and Patrick Mahomes.
But here's my
Russell
retort.
Wilson looks great. I agree.
Here's my retort to that. Even in their prime, even when the Legion of Boom was around, there were many, many games with the Seahawks that were always close. They weren't the type of team that blew you out. They were the type of team that beat you down. And this team right now, thus far, looks like the kind of team that will beat you down.
And we know home field advantage will matter. Those 12s playing up there at the link. Seattle has won 8 straight Thursday night football games, longest active streak in the NFL. Can we please talk about my New York Football Giants still to come? Should Giants fans be afraid that Saquon Barkley will be rushed back too soon? We'll debate that. Stephen A., what else you got for the people?
Always got a huge show coming your way right here on First Take. Has Gostkowski's injury cost the New England Patriots a trip to the Super Bowl? Plus, D-Lo and the Dubs. I'll tell you why it's a perfect match in the Bay. And why is Damian Woody saying he would not pay Dak Prescott top quarterback money? All that and more coming up. First Take in the house. The crew's here. You know what time it is.